Okay, everybody, I just want to share some encouraging news. In case you haven't heard, there's some brothers named Brunson, Brunson. The one that's mostly being interviewed is Loy, Loy Brunson. He and his brothers, over the last 10 or 12 years, did a lot of research on the Constitution because they saw a lot of violations occurring with our government and all the entities involved with them, along with a lot of corrupt corporations and banks. So long story short, the last presidential election, there were a bunch of politicians all the way up to Vice President Pence that chose not to vote to utilize the 10-day rule where they would have 10 days to investigate the assertions of fraud, allegations of fraud. So these guys filed a lawsuit in the lower courts, and they did it under Loy Brunson's name, but then they said, we ought to do another one state and one federal. So they did another one under Rowland, Ralland, I think that's his name. But there's four brothers. Three of them were the ones that really did this whole job. Now, they knew that their case was going to be kicked out of the lower courts all the way up. And that's okay, because that was their plan. They knew that they couldn't win it in the lower courts, but it had to go to the Supreme Court. So Rollins' case ended up going first to the Supreme Court. When they got hold of it, they immediately called them back and they said, "How soon can you get all of this information to us?" They said, "Give us a couple of weeks." And they said, "We'd really like it sooner." That's a good sign right there. So these guys worked like crazy with all the help they could get, and they got all the bound copies, because you have to do it in a certain way for the Supreme Court. They got all the bound copies for all 9 justices, and each of those 9 justices has 4 assistants that they also got copies for. This went before them. If I'm getting the dates right, they sent it in on October 20th, and they got word back from the Supreme Court that they were going to put it on the docket. Now, that day was, I think, the 24th of October, but they said, "You mailed it on the 20th, so we're going to date it back from that date." And the U.S. Attorney's Office that represents all these congressmen and senators that are being named in this lawsuit, which is Brunson versus Alma Adams, the famous witch out of North Carolina that Tyler Lee was running against. And it's Alma Adams et al., meaning everybody following. So you've got this lawsuit against all these people that chose to violate their oath of office to uphold the Constitution. Upholding the Constitution would have been safeguarding an election. They chose not to, so they violated their oath. Now, this is going before the Supreme Court. The U.S. attorneys had 30 days to oppose this case. The day before Thanksgiving, they were watching, Brunson brothers were watching, and they saw that the U.S. attorneys are not even opposing this. This is amazing. They're missing their opportunity. So that next Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, I think it was, they realized that the U.S. attorneys missed their opportunity. The Supreme Court could give them an extension of 10 days, but they chose not to. So right now, the last interview that I had heard prior to a little bit ago was that they were waiting on the Supreme Court to say whether or not they were going to hear it. Now, they did hear since, and not only are they going to hear it, but guess what date they chose to review this case? Oh, and by the way, they needed 4 justices out of the 9 to say, yes, we're going to hear this case. I think you can pick 4 justices that are good out of the 9. And they did. And they decided to hear it on, can you guess the date? What date would you want to see it heard on? No, it's not Christmas. Not New Year's. A little bit after that, 5 days after New Year's Day. You know what that is? The big day that they say people did is insurrection. Okay, so that court case is going to be heard. Now, you can go and search this online at supremecourt.gov, and you can do a search. All the way to the right, you'll see docket search. Click on that. Scroll down. You'll see a bar where it says docket number. Type in 22-380. Hit search, and you will get that court case, and you'll be able to click on any of the links there to read what they've got. Also, the Brunson brothers have their own website, 7discoveries.com. Now, unfortunately, every time they mention that, they don't necessarily say it's the number 7 and then discoveries.com. And they have a number of offers there where you can support them and get certain copies of different things. But definitely we want to support them in this. And what this is monumental, because when these people are found guilty to have violated their oath of office, it will require them to be removed from office. And that would mean all of the Democrats and certain Republicans, also Butthead and Camel Dung, and the Pence, because he chose not to vote to investigate this. And what's this going to do with the rest of them? Not only do they get removed from office, they cannot run for any office, state, federal, local, doesn't matter, ever again. And that's a darn good thing. The other thing is, I think it's going to restore the rightful president. Now, he will not have Pence as his vice president because he violated his oath. So there'll be someone else. Now, I do think there's a good possibility that as this government emergency happens, you're going to have all kinds of what appears to be chaos. Now, by the way, you know that this story is monumental and as huge as it is, you're not seeing it anywhere in the media. And not only that, you try to type in Loy Brunson, do a search for interviews, forget it. Go to rumble.com. I even tried brave.com, meaning another search engine besides Google. And anyway, go to Rumble. You'll see some interviews there. When you see Juan O'Savin, O''Savin, he's in at least a couple of those. You'll have to, just be patient, listen to all the information. There's some interviews that are better than others. But long story short, these guys are pulling off what has not been able to be pulled off by anybody else. And it's not a trick. It's actually upholding our Constitution. And it's we the people filing this lawsuit. So it's way better legally than any other kind of lawsuit or any other kind of investigation. You know that all these congressional investigations, all they are is people shooting words back and forth and nothing ever gets done. We're all fed up with all that. So this is very promising. And yeah, what this is going to do, it's going to leave a gaping hole in our government. And I'm not sure how it's all going to work out, but I'm sure the one that's upstairs and his chosen one, they got a plan. I'm not worried about it. It's going to be a lot of chaos, it appears. If the media's even going to cover it, they're going to be screaming bloody murder because it's the end of them too, right? Doggone right. And there's a whole lot of people that are going to be getting very, very nervous, and probably are already right now. I'm sure word's getting around to all the nefarious, evil, wicked, traitorous bastards that are out there. So keep your heads up. And Lloyd Brunson, encourages you. Yeah, just keep praying. Pray that the Supreme Court will do the right thing. And I really think they will. The thing is, constitutionally, they have to uphold it. And these people have violated it. So we're in for some really big stories coming up. And just keep praying against the dark side, because they need to be sent into confusion, fear, and chaos. Everything they tried to do to us needs to come right back on them. All right? So that's all for now. I'll try to update later on. Take care.